Welcome to this video. Thank you so much for being here. Today's an interesting topic, one that has been asked for so long. So, this evening or this morning or wherever you are in the world, we are going to speak to narcissism. We are going to speak to narcissistic behavior. We are going to speak to living with a narcissist. We're going to observe the traits of what a narcissist is, and we're going to go fairly deep into this today. So if you're just coming on, please let me know that you are on by placing a number 1 in the comment box and maybe even a smiley face or an emoticon, and let me know how you are feeling. Let me know what you are thinking today, because how we feel, our state, our emotional state, really does allow us to absorb information in a very particular way. So, narcissism. This one's tough. Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much. Patricia, how are you? How are you, my dear? Mary, how are you? So, hello to everyone that's coming on. Thank you so much for being here. This is a really popular topic. Zoe, you're feeling epic. That's awesome. I'm glad you are feeling epic. That's coming. I can feel it. Fiona, Sharu, hello. Adna, how are you? So, this is a really, really deep topic, and it is really one that that is asked of me so often. I get emails, SMSs. Charmaine, how are you? I'm glad you are open and connected. Beautiful. Jade, hello. And it's a topic that we see often, and there's such deep complexity to narcissism. And narcissism is essentially, it's part of a personality disorder, so to speak, from psychological terms. So what I'm going to do today is I've been thinking about this the last couple of days. In fact, I've been thinking about it for more than a couple of days. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to speak to narcissism from a perspective of, hello Ruth, how are you, of psychology. That's my background in psychology. But I'm also going to speak to narcissism with respect to how we perceive it, how we feel it within ourselves, how we experience it in others as well. Natasha, you're absolutely right. It can very much be misdiagnosed, and it's a complex state to be in. And remember, states are transient. States are not permanent. They're not fixed. Yeah. So let's go into what a narcissist is. Let's go into understanding narcissism. So effectively, narcissism is a person who has an excessive interest or admiration in themselves. But of course, there's more to it than just this. It's not limited to vanity by any means. Okay, so I want to go through what narcissism is. I want to go through some of the key characteristics. I want to go through attempting to understand narcissism as well. And how we can relate to narcissism. I also want to provide you today with tools with respect to if you are in a narcissistic relationship where you are experiencing narcissism from another, or perhaps you'll notice these traits within yourself as well. But if you're experiencing that narcissistic behavior in another, what you can do to liberate yourself, to give yourself the best chance to connect to you, to ensure that you still maintain a level of self-love and self-worth that is deep and connected. Yeah, that is so important. So narcissists will generally think the world revolve around them. And it is part of a broader personality disorder, yeah, that can come under a sociopathy or psychopathy or a psychopath or a sociopath. But we're not going to go too deep into that, yeah, because that's even more complex. That's even more pathological, so to speak, yeah. And there are also, of course, narcissism, so we understand this, works on a spectrum. So we can have a low-level narcissist or a high-level intense narcissist as well, okay? So hopefully after today, you're going to get a better idea of what this means. So it's the pursuit of gratification or from vanity or egotistic admiration of one's own attributes. And the term originated from Greek mythology where Narcissus, he fell in love with himself. He fell in love with himself when he reflected in a pool of water. And this becomes interesting when we start to look at that. So when narcissism, there's nothing wrong with loving self. Loving self is necessary. Connecting to self is necessary. Having an empowered, authentic sense of self-worth is necessary. And give me a number 2 in the comment box if you resonate with that statement, that having a sense of self-worth and self-love is necessary. Don't look too deep into that. Just if you believe that and you acknowledge that, put a number 2 in the comment box. But we'll speak to where narcissism begins to take over, yeah? Where narcissism becomes a problem. So it becomes a problem when it's expressed in extreme manners at the expense of the well-being of others. That's the way I view narcissism. That's the way I relate to how do we identify if someone's a narcissist? When the behavior is perpetual, consistent, extreme, and it's at the expense of others. So that's insight into that right off the bat. Okay, so I really wanted to get into that really quickly because it's so important to understand what that actually means for us, yeah? As people that are on the receiving end of narcissism, or sometimes we're even behaving in narcissistic ways. So we can express narcissistic tendencies. It does not mean that we are narcissistic though. Need to be careful with that, yeah? So as we're exploring this, begin to think and feel into yourself where you are experiencing narcissistic tendencies or behaviors, whether it be in someone else or whether it be in yourself, yeah? So narcissism is mainly observable in adults. It's more prevalent in males than females, which is interesting. That's a cultural construct of our society as well. And we can deep dive into that later. But if you have any questions around that, you can ask that. And it's thought to occur in about 5 to 7% of the population, somewhere around there. I mean, these statistics, according to research, I mean, how accurate are the statistics? I don't know, but we call it 5 to 7% of the population. Again, the accuracy of these statistics, I haven't verified them, but I would also assume that that's more in the Western world. So it's a Western construct more than the Eastern world or developing nations. Yeah, so that's interesting. Nadine, there you say something around child's base needs not being met, then an adult polarizing to into extremes wanting their needs to be met, aka child state world revolves around me, and also most narcissists don't know. I can't read the rest of that, sorry Nadine, but yes, you're right, and we're going to speak to that as well because that's really, really important. Like, that's super important what you've just mentioned there. So thank you for mentioning that because we're going to tap into that. So researchers today, scientists, behavioral therapists or behavioral analysts, sociologists, etc., don't really know the causes of narcissistic personality disorder, and that's what I'm getting to now. So part of it is yes, a lack of self-worth, it's a lack of fear, it's where our needs aren't being met. There are many theories around this, but most of us, and where I sort of look at this as well, because I love to look at the integration of our reality. Yeah, so we look at biopsychosocial reasons as to why narcissistic behavior is prevalent in certain adults or certain people. But let's just go back to that 5, 6, 7% mark. That's a decent amount of the population that have identifiable or excessive narcissistic tendencies or behaviors. That's interesting, yeah? So we want to look at that. So what it means is that there's biological and genetic factors potentially, there's social factors, how a person interacts with their environment. Melody, how are you? Welcome. There's how we develop our coping strategies and our coping skills, our learned coping behaviors to deal with stress as children. That can affect the way we behave or the way we present and show up to the world, how we feel about the world, how we feel about ourselves, whether we feel entitled or not, but I'm going to go into these characteristics shortly. We look at understanding that there's no single factor that is responsible, and rather it's complex and it's an integration and it's intertwined, and I would say it's a, it's a combination of all three factors that we've just mentioned, yeah? Around psychological, social, physical, so potentially genetic to some degree. And they say there's a slightly increased risk of that disorder being passed down to children. I would lean more towards the environmental factors, though. It's important to understand this. So, although a narcissist is thought of being in love with themselves, it's more often the case that they're only in love with the idyllic. I want to say this word. Ideal is what I want to say, but idyllic image of themselves, and that they perceive they wish was true. So there's this disconnect between who they are and who they perceive they would like to be. Yeah, and of course we're going to. I see some of the comments. There's a lot of comments streaming right now, which is awesome. But please understand that I'm going to go into so many characteristics. I'm sure I'll be able to remember them all, but I'm going to go into so many deep characteristics of what narcissism actually presents, how it presents it, and what it means for us. Yelena, how are you? It's lovely of you to be listening while you're practicing yoga. Wonderful. So deep down within a narcissist, though, we need to understand that they can live a very self-destructive and crippling self-doubt, coupled with extremely low self-esteem and self-worth. Hence why most narcissists behave the way they do, and I'll go through the behaviors in a moment, yeah? But a narcissist is often the child of narcissistic parents as well. So where the child is observing this narcissistic behavior in the way the parents interact with each other, or one of the parents is interacting, and the way the parents interact with children. Let me be very clear with something here. When adults are expressing extreme narcissistic behavior, what tends to actually happen, and this is really interesting, is that they won't differentiate between adults and children. In other words, they won't allow reprieve towards children, because narcissists are a combination of sometimes being very conscious of where they are, being very calculated, but also being deeply unconscious of their narcissistic behavior. That's why it's a problem. That's why it's so difficult to potentially be with that person, or potentially spend time with that person. And the focus will come. I'll come into the focus today with respect to relationships, but I'll keep going now. So most of these narcissistic parents, they build up their esteem by telling the child how special, amazing, gifted they are, and how they would go on to do these wonderful, great, amazing things. But they offer no solid foundation or stability from where the child can actually function. This becomes a problem for the way the child then moves through the world as an adult, because they have a false idea or a perception of what life actually is. So when life and all its externalities and all of its challenges, basically what happens is a child grows up in a polarized way. If you can resonate with that, give me number 3 in the comment box. The child grows up in a polarized way, thinking the world is only one way and the world is not that way. And when challenge occurs, fear occurs, pain occurs, difficulty occurs, the child does not know, the adult child does not know how to deal with that. Fiona, absolutely, the child has no resilience. So we revert to particular coping strategies that generally can be dangerous for the self, yeah? So a narcissist parents will also, they've been so warped in themselves, they will only pay attention to the child when it suits their needs. And I spoke to that earlier, yeah? So the child swings from very little love and attention to the exact opposite of that, receiving love and attention in abundance, and usually to the parent's benefit and the child's detriment. So it becomes so confusing for the child. The child does not know how to behave in harmonious balance with other people, relationally, socially, with itself, with him or herself. That becomes really dangerous for the child growing up, yeah? So in order, let me be very clear about something. In order for a person to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD for short, they must meet 5 of the following criteria, core criteria that I'm going to give you, yeah? So And they must meet this criteria. So this is by, I suppose, clinical psychological analysis, which, yes, to some degree I subscribe to, but it's got to be more than that. We also must learn. Those of you that have been watching my live feeds for some time, you would probably notice, I would hope that you notice, that the language that I use is a combination of, I suppose, for lack of a better term, scientific language with more esoteric language, or philosophical language. And there's a reason for that. Language is important for many reasons, the way we express ourselves, communicate, and connect. On a neuroscientific levels, in other words, the way our brains operate and understand the world around us from a behavioral perspective, but also how we consciously relate from our hearts. And there's also a great deal of physiology and science behind that. I'm not downplaying science, of course, but we also need to move beyond the realm of just the physical senses. That's my belief. So when I'm saying about this clinical diagnosis, there's also more than that. We have to also go by how we feel and how we are responding to that situation, but also how we are reacting, how we are feeling when people are treating us in a particular way. This is really important. So I'd love to hear, whilst I'm speaking to these characteristics, so we're getting to the really important parts now. While I'm speaking to these characteristics, I'd love to hear about what people feel and think with respect to the importance of their heart. How do they listen to their heart? And their heart is a symbol for listening to the feeling and to the emotion, listening from within to the feeling and the emotion that arises when we are confronted with a situation. Our intuition is when our complete bodies are in alignment. Our psychological, our spiritual, our emotional, our physical bodies are working in unison, harmony and alignment, and our intuition is able to express itself. So how often do you listen to your intuition? What do you do to listen to your intuition? How do you behave with respect to your intuition? And how do you act upon your intuition? I'd love to know that. So have a feel and think into that whilst I'm going through these characteristics now. So number one, has a grand sense of self-importance, exaggerates achievements, talents, expects to be recognized as someone that is superior without actually having achieved any achievements, without actually having reached any form of real achievement, just to be known for who they are, is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success and power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Anything that is valued deeply in societal culture or the cultural collective of that particular society. They believes he or she is deeply special and unique and can only be understood or should associate with special or high status individuals. So is elite, so to speak. Has a very strong sense of entitlement. For example, unrealistic expectations, especially favorable treatment, or the expectation of having automatic compliance with his or her own expectations of how the world should be, automatic compliance from others. So whilst you're listening to these characteristics, pop a yes in the comment box if, Never, you're welcome, my brother. Pop a yes in the comment box if you resonate with these characteristics, or you're familiar with them, or you've noticed them in other people, or if you're not familiar, then pop a no, that's fine too. Arrogance, like deep-seated arrogance. This is a big one. I'm going to expand on this because there's so many characteristics that there are literally, like, I'm probably going to list 40 or 50 characteristics. But I'm going to speak to the lack of empathy in particular today. That's the one I've chosen to speak more openly today, So it lacks empathy, is unwilling to, empathy and compassion actually, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others, and as a byproduct is unable to assist others in their journey as well. And I'm going to speak more to this coming through. Flamboyant with money and gifts, absolutely, Zoe. And that comes down to self-worth and self-esteem and connection to self and not understanding self, regularly shows arrogant behaviors or attitudes, and I've mentioned that. Gaslighting, this is an interesting one as well. So questions everything that you do. Questions everything that you do. In other words, sows seeds of doubt within others. That's an interesting one as well. In other words, there's very little trust in narcissists, very little trust. They are unable to trust anyone because they don't really trust themselves, yeah? They have excessive passive-aggressive behavior as well. And they're the core characteristics, but I'm going to list a heap more with respect to, again, so for example, I'm going to list charisma. Narcissists are generally charismatic. But just because you're charismatic, it doesn't mean you're a narcissist. Remember what the parameters around this are. It's excessive behavior, it's extreme behavior, it's perpetual behavior, it's in combination with other negative or destructive behavior. So charisma and charm on its own, there's nothing wrong with that. If it's coming from a place of intention, deep intention, sincere intention to be of service to others, and of course, to just naturally have a zest and a love for life, there's nothing wrong with being charming. There's nothing wrong with being charismatic. And be very clear on that, yeah? Other characteristics are highly possessive. So highly possessive of self, of objects, and of subjects as well. Controlling, excessively controlling. Remember, if you're feeling this, people, probably yes in the comment box, yeah? You never know where you really stand with narcissists. So there's always an element of doubt. There you go, Zoe. Inconsistent behavior. Hidden agendas are the norm for narcissists as well. They avoid accountability like the plague, yeah? And Nadine says, I think all humans have narcissistic tendencies. We must own the shadow to free it. No shame. We are all a bit self-absorbed. Absolutely. And we need to be self-absorbed, because if we don't, then we actually die. That's what happens. Because if we're not self-absorbed, we don't care enough about ourselves to actually look after ourselves. So being selfish is necessary, and I have that model that I use, that selflessness model, which is about being of service to ourselves, our own soul, our own journey, but also simultaneously being of service to others in the most sincere way possible. So yes, Nadine, absolutely. And we all will have some of these tendencies. Remember, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's no judgment against the narcissist either. I'm not saying I condone narcissistic behavior, because I do not. But understand that we possess elements of all of this. And if we don't own that, we are fragmented. If we are fragmented, we are not whole. If we are whole, we are not experiencing life fully. Give me a number 4 if you resonate with that as well. Other characteristics: conceited, an inflated self-perception or a perception of self, creates drama, deeply overdramatic, yeah? Likes to be in the spotlight, but loves to be in the spotlight, and forces self in the spotlight at the expense of others, at the expense of others' pains, so to speak, or others' experiences, yeah? Takes advantage of others, exaggerates their achievements, we've mentioned that. Compulsive lying, this is tough one. Nicole, yeah, can't say sorry. So unable to forgive, again, because the lack of empathy and compassion, yeah? Cannot deal with criticism, gets hurt very easy. In other words, can give punches, can't take punches, in the light of the McGregor-Mayweather fight today. If some of you had watched that. Extremely jealous, so has these very jealous behaviors, expressions of jealous behavior. Appears strong on the surface, but generally crumbles under pressure. Has a deep desire for power, but autocratic power, and not power to give or be of service, but power for selfish reasons, for inauthentic reasons. What does Brooke say here? There are also the covert narcissists who aren't overtly wanting to be in the spotlight, rather more passive-aggressive and depressed and gaslight to the max. Yeah, absolutely. Need to control, needy behavior, center of attention, inauthentic, highly dominant is an interesting one as well. Attention-seeking, demeaning behavior. So demeaning behavior and devalues the efforts of others. That sucks. That they devalue all of the efforts that others do. Well, that's actually interesting, because narcissistic parents, when they're devaluing their children and devaluing their efforts, the children aren't learning cohesively. They're not learning deeply. They're not learning in a more profound way. They're not learning in a way that allows them to connect to the activity, and then children will give up and engage rather than in a more growth mindset. They'll engage in a rigid mindset. So that's actually interesting. That came to me then when I was as I mentioned that demeaning behaviour and the devaluing of efforts. I'd like any parents out there that know other parents, or anyone that knows other parents that are like that with their children, pop another 5 in the comment box and let me know what you feel about that. That's a really interesting one. It's just sort of come to me, so I'm processing and digesting it as I'm thinking and feeling into it. Forces guilt upon others as well, for saying no or not agreeing with them, or if you speak your truth, that becomes a deep problem as well. So there are a heap of characteristics there that I've just mentioned around narcissistic behavior. And remember, you may have a few of these, but it doesn't mean you're narcissistic. It's just, I have clients come to me often and say, hey, have I got bipolar? Hey, have I got personality disorder? Hey, have I got this? Matthew, how are you, brother? And I say, whoa. But look, when I read this psychological evaluation, it says that, look, I've got all these and I've got all this and and I say, whoa. But how are you projecting these? How are you relating to this? How are you holding this in your expression? And what's the consistency of this? What's the extremity of this? So don't get too carried away, because in the world of Google and access to information so quickly, we tend to self-diagnose really fast as well. Just pull the reins, just easy on how you diagnose yourself. Yeah, that's super important. don't over project. Yeah, Ashley, how are you, brother? Good to have you here. And hey, people, if this is your first time on the live feed, just pop new on the live feed. Just pop new in the comment box so that I know that you're new, that you're here, and the beautiful tribe can welcome you as well. If you're new, just pop new in the comment box. Absolutely, Nicole, balance of dark and light. So balancing the contrast, that's really important. Yelena says, these descriptions are stressing me out. I'm scared of these people. These people are beautiful people who need to be loved as well. And you know that, you feel that, you're that type of person. Yeah, they will challenge you to love unconditionally. And that's great, Yelena. People, let me be really clear on something. When we are challenged, the bigger the challenge for us, because some people, personally, people will face challenges very differently, but the bigger the challenge for us, the more profound the opportunity for growth and insight and expansion into the infinitesimal capacity that we have to be, yeah? So if this is really challenging you, good. Seek narcissists to be around so you can deal with them, or you can respond to them in a loving, kind way, because that's what will heal, that's what will help, that's what will resolve. In saying that though, look after your safety always. That's a given, yeah? Always look after your safety. Oh, wow. Okay. Sangazer, Isria, I hope I said this correctly. Leash, wow, so many new people. Wow, wonderful. Tribe, can we welcome all these wonderful new people to the live feed this evening, please? That would be wonderful. So let's get some support and welcoming happening, yeah? Awesome. Thank you, Mary. Wonderful. So I'm going to go into how we stop this, and I'm going to provide as well some solutions with respect to how we deal with narcissists. I'm going to get to all that, but I want to speak to empathy, because the lack of empathy is one of the most striking features of people with narcissistic personality disorder, or people that have narcissism or express narcissism, yeah? And it's a hallmark of this disorder, it really is, and that's why I want to focus on this, because it's so prominent within the disorder. I don't like saying that word, disorder. I was tongue in cheek, Yelena, when I said seek them out. But if they come to you, be with them. It's like pain. Don't seek pain out, but if pain comes to us, be with the pain. Like, that's really powerful. So if pain, who agrees with this? Pop a yes in the comment box. If pain or something that is difficult to deal with, or fear comes to us, is it not wise to move into the fear, move through the fear, move through the pain, move through that situation that is challenging us? Pop a yes in the comment box if you resonate with that, yeah? So for example, like, the lack of empathy is so prominent within narcissists. It's such a hallmark. It's such a prominent behavior of narcissistic tendencies that it's the same way like a fear of abandonment, for example, is a hallmark of borderline personality disorder, yeah? So super important. So narcissists do not consider the pain they inflict on others, nor do they give any credence to others' perceptions. They are completely disconnected from the way people feel, or the way people even express their emotions. In other words, they are, there you go, Nicole, they are apathetic and they lack emotional intelligence so deeply. And it is, Zoe, you're absolutely right. So it is a wiring in the brain, in part, of course. And beyond that wiring in the brain, it's entrenched in their cultural expressions. But it can be changed because the brain is malleable, it's plastic. Ewan is new as well. Welcome, Ewan. Thank you so much for being here. For narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, low empathy is the big giveaway. Energetic heart bypass. They believe their own lies and try to convince others. This to be very destabilizing to the point of doubting. I can't see the rest of that, Ewan, but yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. We'll catch up soon, Ash. Absolutely, my brother. Absolutely. Yeah, neuroplasticity, definitely a matter. So it can definitely be transmuted, transformed, behaviors can change, yeah? But they basically just do not care about thoughts and feelings of others that are in conflict with their own, especially if it's with their own. They just totally disengage and disconnect, yeah? Do not expect them to listen. Do not expect them to validate. Do not expect them to be present. Do not expect them to understand. Do not expect them to support you. So here are some examples from partners who experience narcissism. And if you resonate with this, if you experience this, pop a yes in the comment box, yeah? Kat, welcome. Thank you for being here. Kat's new as well. Wounds, opportunities to heal and let more light in. Absolutely. Can we welcome Kat as well, please, and Ewan as well, please, to the live feed and to the tribe and to the community. That would be wonderful. Welcome, beautiful people, of course. And if you're just coming on, people, number one in the comment box, so I know that you're here, that we can interact with you. So examples are, he would actually get mad at me if I was sick. I would say, I sat here with you for days when you were depressed and you couldn't get out of bed and now you can't even be a little nice to me when I'm sick. That type of example, yeah? Another one would be, my partner would hurt my feelings just when things were going really well. Narcissists become deeply self-destructive because they are so scared, they're so fearful of life, they're so fearful of the way life can be if they weren't so self-absorbed. It's completely new to, I'm not going to get too carried away because I'll go down the rabbit hole, right? But when I would question him or her about it, they would make up excuses and tell me I'm wrong for feeling that way, and why am I feeling that way? And if I didn't like it, there was something wrong with me. I'm not saying this from a first person. I'm speaking in first person. I'm not saying from my own personal experiences though. I've never been in an intimate relationship with a narcissist. Blessed, but I've known narcissists, of course, in many varying capacities, and of course deal with them in my line of service as well. Another example would be we could spend hours detailing how we felt, how hurt we were, and they would just sit there cold, disconnected, disassociated. That's a huge characteristic as well of narcissism, is disassociation, just completely disassociated from what is being said. And when it's their turn to speak, they would tear down everything you say. Everything. And then you would have to apologize for how you felt and what you expressed. That's the level of narcissism. That's the extreme level of narcissism that can be dealt with in relationship. It's dangerous. So this is something interesting as well. Narcissists can only pick up on social cues I'm just trying to think how to say this. They'll struggle to pick up on social cues, and if they do, it's a fake it attitude. And when I say social cues for interacting appropriately, yeah. So they look normal, and they hope they will get something from the interaction, and they appear to be engaging normally, but they're really faking the way they're interacting, the way they're immersing in the relationship or in the dynamic, yeah? It's characterized by a long-standing pattern of grandeur, either in fantasy or actual behavior as well. And that's a really important point to note. So there's an overwhelming need for admiration. I want to come back to this because it's so important. And again, that lack of empathy towards others and towards self as well. Remember, that's so important, towards self. So people with this disorder will believe they are of primary importance in everybody's life. And I mean everybody's life. Whoever they meet, they are even if they just met this person for a few seconds. Now, this pattern of behavior potentially, this pattern of behavior was potentially viable and had some credence in 16th century England in the realm of kings and castles and queens, but it's not appropriate for today's behavior, especially in the hyper-connected world that we live in and the way we actually relate and connect to and love each other, yeah? So people with this behavior, with narcissism, will display snobbish, disdainful, patronizing behavior and attitudes. They will really, really demean deeply. So, for example, they will complain about everything. They will complain about the bus being late. They will complain about at a restaurant the decor not being on point. Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you for being here. They're just they will pick on everything. Nothing is ever right. So they have a perfectionist attitude as well. Yeah. So let me because I want to clarify this, because again, so many people are saying, "Oh, but that's me. Like I have these tendencies sometimes, and I experience this sometimes, and I feel like that sometimes. That's me. I can experience that. And am I narcissistic? Do I have this disorder?" No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because it's the enduring pattern is inflexible, yeah? And pervasive across a broad range of personal and social situations. So you have to apply that method or that line of thinking to how you behave fully, yeah? So it would typically lead to stress, or significant distress or impairment in our social world, in our work, and in other areas of our functioning, especially our relationships. And the pattern is stable, of long duration. That's really, really important to understand. So there's consistency in the patterns of behavior that are being expressed. And its onset can be traced back to either early adulthood or adolescence. So if you were to start to observe yourself, and I'm going to go into what that means later on in terms of observation, if you began to observe yourself, you would see that there's a long-standing relationship with this behavior. Yeah. So with respect to relationship, this becomes interesting. So the beginning of a relationship with a narcissist, it can feel like addictive and intoxicating fairy tale. It's beautiful. It's perfect. They are playing the role of the charming prince or princess. In most cases, prince, because most men are narcissistic, as opposed to women. So studies demonstrate. And I think through personal experience, qualitative experience, you're probably able to experience that. Narcissists, however, will fall into what appears to be in love and want to commit deeply very quickly. They will want to commit, be present very quickly. However, as time passes and their partner begins to see the truth of what's within, problems can very quickly occur and very quickly arise, and disconnection occurs from the partnership very, very quickly. And if the partner attempts to address the issues of a narcissist, the narcissist will go into meltdown, depending on their predisposed personality type. They'll either go into meltdown and become recluse or retract, or just completely shut down, heart, mind, soul, everything just shuts down, body shuts down, or they go into complete denial, or they often attack. They become very passive aggressive. They go deep into that aggression and that attacking, that psycho-emotional attacking, that social attacking. They accuse, and they become very sensitive, and they make you feel very vulnerable. If you can resonate with that, or you understand that, pop a number 6 in the comment box, please. And a narcissist will always be correct. Let's get that very clear. They are always right. Like, it's very difficult to change the mind of a narcissist. Very difficult. So getting into any kind of debate or argument or dialogue where potential faults are concerned, it's a futile exercise. It really is. It's not anything worth engaging in. But Narcissists are people, and they are people that we love. So when I say it's not worth engaging in, it's not worth engaging in a particular way. But there are ways we can move through connecting to narcissism, yeah? Begin to think now where you've experienced narcissistic behavior, where you've experienced in your workplace, in your circle of friends, in your family, in your community, with your loved ones, Nikhil, how are you, brother? When it comes to right or wrong, a narcissist has an impulsive desire to ensure they are right regardless of the cost. And this is where they just do not take others' minds and hearts into consideration. If being right costs them family, friends, the relationship, they will often suffer the consequences. That's how strong the pull of the ego, of the self-preservation of this particular type of expression is within the narcissist. Rather than admit to being wrong, they will just put up a defensive posturing, and a destructive battle of wills will take place, and they just do not give a fuck. They don't care. And most of that is very unconscious. They cannot step outside of themselves and observe that behavior in most extreme cases. And if you're in that space, or you've experienced someone with that space, it's very difficult to be present in that. Very, very challenging, yeah? A narcissist will role play. They'll basically role play in whatever manipulative manner that garners the best response for them, in alignment with what their desired outcome is. Yeah, that we're going to be really clear about that. So if they're up against a very strong, determined, independent person, a person that is authentic and stands strong in their authentic power, they will move into the role of a sensitive, loving, caring, and vulnerable character, even that of the victim. They will move into the space of the victim to gain the attention, to manipulate the situation. If they interact with a codependent personality type, they'll more than likely move into the role of an aggressor. Yeah. If you can understand that, if you've experienced that, pop a number 7 in the comment box, please. And there can be definitely confusion when identifying with a narcissist, because it's healthy to have self-love, and it's healthy to have self-worth, to have our own desires, our own wants and our own needs, and to also value ourselves highly. There's nothing wrong with that. We need that. But remember those core character traits. If those core character traits are accompanying the self-love and the self-worth, and you can't empathize, or that person cannot empathize and connect and be compassionate, be of service to others, that's a problem with respect to how narcissists move and behave, yeah? However, when these things, Patricia, that's awesome. When these things derive from an internally wounded place, and one of self-loathing, low self-esteem, deep-rooted insecurities that have not been addressed, where the shadow self has not been addressed, has not been explored, where elements of self that are fragmented have not been paid attention to, what happens is when someone needs other people's admiration and validation to make themselves feel complete, or feel good, or feel connected, or feel loved, this is when the narcissistic personality arises, and we are able to see fully that. They are the king of pity parties in the Combat School. Oh, wow. Jackie, welcome. Where's Ren? Where's Ren Bay? Get her on if she's not on. Get her on. Everyone likes to feel important and worthy, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need to feel important, and we need to feel worthy. But the narcissist has an unrealistic perception of themselves and an unrealistic expectation of what that looks like. And they require other people to constantly boost and validate their opinions so that their feelings of worthiness remain at an elevated and elated height and level. Brooke, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If they are not met with regular approval, or if they are criticised, they will be sure to speak very loud about that. Again, depending on their personality type. And make their perceived self-worth known, yeah? Like, hugely. A narcissist will drain the energy of another. This is actually quite important. They will drain, when you're feeling drained around a narcissist and the energy of a human being, and you're just constantly feeling drained, that's a sure sign. Raylene says, what is your take on the narcissist who accuses another of being narcissistic, where the person who has been accused of being a narcissist is smothered by narcissistic relationships throughout their entire lives? And you've said something else there and I can't see that. Okay, Jackie, that's cool. Tell Ren we love her. Raylene, okay, so that's interesting, yeah. So if you're... Narcissists won't tell anyone else that they're narcissistic because they can't recognize it within themselves and they don't really understand what that is. But in saying that, that's probably a subjective... Let me feel into that for a moment. Most narcissists won't, if they know that they are narcissists, which if you know you're a narcissist, it means that you're not really a narcissist. That's the answer to that. There you go. If you know you're a narcissist, it means that you're not really a narcissist. And the fact that you can self-reflect in that space and asking these questions, well, am I a narcissist? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Am I being this? Means that you're probably not a narcissist. With respect to other narcissists calling other people narcissists, doubtful that will happen because they do not want to place themselves in that if they think that they actually may be that. But remember, revert to what I said. If you think you're a narcissist, you're probably not a narcissist, yeah? I hope that makes sense and begins to answer that a little bit. The narcissist will also verbally attack others as well, yeah? So, like, be mindful around that. Like, I mean, like, verbal attack, like, hard, like, deep, hard, rigid, sharp verbal attack, using insults and put downs to make them feel confused and disorientated so that others surrender easily. And this keeps the illusion strong, yeah? In the narcissist's mind that they are powerful, they are strong, they are right, they are able, yeah? They are more powerful and they are a significantly better person, yeah? And narcissists will try and keep the opponent deep within the chaos. And I use the word opponent very purposefully there, because that's how they view the world, that everyone is against them. Or that everyone is against them but should be for them. And they literally view, that like a narcissist will view their loved one, their beloved, their intimate partner as an opponent. So sad. And they'll keep us in that space. They'll keep people in that chaos so they remain submerged and willing to tend to their needy, attention-seeking and demanding requests. Remember what we said about narcissists being controlling and demanding and authoritative? Really, really deep. So with a narcissist, knowledge is power. And the more we know about a condition, the more likely we have of understanding it and dealing with it. So that's why we've gone into these deep characteristics, especially around empathy and understanding this. So when we're in a position to take all the steps necessary to protect and prepare ourselves so that the narcissist can no longer keep us tangled and cocooned in their sticky and endless spun web of lies, that's when we begin to liberate ourselves from being mistreated, and we begin to value ourselves with a deeper level of respect and consistency in that respect for self. So if closure is something that is sought after, it can often be difficult to achieve when dealing with a narcissist, because they will beg and they will plead and they will charm and they will use so that charming nature is used for self-absorbed, inauthentic reasons. If you can resonate with that, pop a number 8 in the comment box. And they'll use every trick they can to place the other person back into the safety of their web, so to speak, okay? And this is where the narcissist becomes deeply, deeply manipulative. A relationship with a narcissist can be emotionally distressing, like a roller coaster, and feeling like one extreme to the next, literally, yeah? So begin to notice that in your relationships. Are you feeling safe with a person, then feeling unsafe, safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe? Is it just fucking your mind how they are behaving? They're completely unpredictable. They are one day one way, the next day the complete opposite. Begin to understand and connect to that and feel into that. Because if they are not coming from heart, they are being deeply inconsistent in the way they are behaving and treating themselves and treating you. When a narcissist is receiving all the intention, then things will be great. No problem. When they are feeling fulfilled in their narcissistic behaviors, they are fine. There's no issues there. But as soon as that diminishes, they will very, very quickly manipulate the situation, and they'll play the role of the charmer or the aggressor or whatever it actually is required in that state. So they have a very low level coping strategy with respect to stress. So that's something else that you can notice. We spoke to that earlier about toughness and resilience. Do they have a very rigid mindset? Do they have a very rigid approach to life where they struggle to be connected to self? Sangaze, that is really vulnerable of you, man. That is really open of you. Deeply open and vulnerable of you. But just know that it's difficult for it's rarer for adolescent children, adolescent individuals to be narcissistic, yeah? It's more of a tendency really developed through adulthood. So just be mindful of that when you're, when self-assessing, so to speak, yeah? But let me be really clear about something. If there's any concerns for your emotional or physical safety, like create boundaries, create space, leave the environment, seek help, either together or separately. Understand that, yeah? That's very, very important. I need a resounding 9 in the comment box if your safety is a priority. Your safety needs to be a priority, people. It needs to. So if you're experiencing this with an intimate partner and someone that is an aggressor or being very violent when they do not get their way, or when life is not happening for them because they're perceiving life to happen to them, you need to promise me that you're going to create, Matt, welcome brother, it's good to see you, I was thinking of you today, that you're going to create space and boundaries in order to protect yourself and look after your being and your loved ones as well. Yeah, it's a very serious note. So number 9 in the comment box, so let me know that you resonate with that. So a relationship with a narcissist, thank you Ash, or interaction with a narcissist is an illusion, and nothing with a narcissist is actually as it seems, unfortunately. The inner truth remains deeply hidden, and they will only reveal what they care to carefully show, when they care to carefully show it. We all wear masks or have it's not narcissism. Yeah, we all wear masks, absolutely, Zoe. And that's not narcissism wearing a mask at all. We do it for reasons of self-preservation and self-care. Again, it's how we wear those masks and the reasons, the intention behind those masks, whether it be conscious or unconscious, the driving motivation behind that, yeah? But the key to understand why the connection has taken place, recognize why the attraction was so strong, and learn as much as you can about narcissistic personality as possible so that you can make informative decisions about your current circumstances and your current relationship, and also to be wary of falling into another relationship like that again. But do not feel responsible for the behavior or feel foolish for not seeing signs sooner, because narcissists are deeply manipulative. And you know what? Love is love, or the perception of love is love. And when we feel love and when we connect to love, sometimes it's difficult to see. It's difficult to see the pain of that, or to see the pain through that love. And we want to. It's funny, the ego, we become fragmented. The ego wants to externalize and project and blame and self-preserve, but then we don't want to hurt others either that we love and care for, so we take the blame on to ourselves, and the inner self just becomes so fragmented and broken and so confused. So don't feel responsible for a narcissist. They've developed magnetizing qualities, yeah, and a seductive charm, as they need these things in order to ensure the mask they wear is never questioned or removed. How do we heal, Katrina? I'm going to get to that, but we heal in various ways. And Ewan says, re-adolescence, I think that narcissists are stuck in pre-pubescence. Yeah, to some degree. Wounding is perceived betrayal, usually by opposite sex parent, lack of trust, need for control. Yeah, absolutely, Ewan, that's deeply accurate, my friend, well, by my understanding. Jaida says, how easy is it for narcissistic behavior turning into sadistic behavior? Very easy. So, I mean, you can look at narcissism to some degree as a gateway condition or a gateway psychosocial condition, yeah, into a deeper pathology such as sociopathy or a psychopath even. So narcissism, like extreme narcissistic behavior, is a prelude to sociopathic behavior, which is it's more violent. Sociopathic behavior is more violent and it's hidden, it's masked, it's very much masked as well, but it's far more intense than narcissistic behavior, yeah? So I hope that answers your question, Jaida. And sadistic behavior, again, is really fueled by an intention to hurt others, so it can very much lead to sociopathy, yeah? Yeah, absolutely, Nadine. That's an example of sadistic behavior. And look, narcissists can definitely portray that as well, absolutely. Look, when we're talking about how do we heal, like when we're looking at narcissism, it's a game of manipulation. It's a game of manipulation that's been played, and the only way to end the game is to regain self-confidence and take your mastery of self back and mastery of the circumstances back, but to do it in a way that comes from love. And effectively, you end the game by loving self and making choices that are safe and conducive to your journey and your path. So how do we respond? You know, how do we? Oh, we'll look at some treatments as well, Bob. We'll look at treatments, but no, I'll speak to how we respond first. No one can make us be anything. We need to realize that we are deeply empowered, sovereign beings. Having that realization, that belief system, that changes the dynamic and the way we choose to interact with that narcissistic person, the way and what we choose to handle, rather what we choose to allow into our sphere of existence, yeah? What we choose to, there's a term I'm looking for, it's eluded me. What we choose to tolerate, that's all. Yeah, what we choose to tolerate, yeah? Journal your feelings. Journal your feelings in response to the tension that you're experiencing. So keep track of the events in order to fully understand the situation. So this is how we begin to respond to narcissisms, yeah? Silence is not the best answer, Sharu, not at all. You must speak your truth and you must communicate your truth, and you must do that in the most appropriate, safe, coming from a place of love way possible, yeah? So we need to respond in the same way others treat us. We can make choices that align with our values. So just because a narcissist is responding to us in an aberrant way, that does not mean that we must respond in the same way also. Remember that you are the conductor of your orchestra. You have a choice to, and let me be really clear about this. Let me say the statement first and then I'll be clear on the caveat around this. That you choose your environment, so you surround yourself with people that uplift you. But there's of course caveats to this, because if you are stuck in a violent, narcissistic environment or home, and you have children perhaps, it can be very difficult to just say, yeah, I'm going now. Where do you go? Maybe you don't have family, maybe you don't have friends, maybe the shelter is full, maybe you don't want to upheave the children. Like there's so many factors. It's not as simple as this, but we have to understand that we are empowered and there are choices, and we have to search, at least believe that there are choices, so that we can search for those choices, that we can draw those choices and those opportunities, those possibilities into our lives with greater depth, yeah? So we have to understand that. Reclaim your power by knowing that you are responsible for your choices and responses. Do not externalize and give away your power. The moment you externalize and give away your power is the moment you start to lose, yeah? You start to lose all that you are. That's not good. If you are seeking the approval of others, you must look deep into your own self-worth, and it must begin there. You must look into your self-worth. If you're seeking the approval of others, ask. You know, we experience life in contrast. So if you're experiencing dominance in your life and you're being subservient, why? If you are acting the victim and you're allowing perpetrators to victimize you, why? Asking this is so, so important. So important. Validate your own existence. What part are you playing in this dynamic? Where is the lesson, the growth, the value for you? I'm not saying do not remove yourself from the situation if it's not safe. But ask yourself what role you're playing. Be honest and transparent and make others accountable through your own authenticity. So when we're talking about healing, it comes back to creating a space of love for yourself. It comes back to creating a space of, yes, you're responsible for your feelings and the way you interact and the way how you feel and think about life. But it comes back to also not being responsible for the way others respond to you or the way others choose to live their lives. That's so important to understand that you have so much more power and worth than that, yeah? And Ewan says you must stay grounded physically, stay in the present, document facts. Absolutely, that's part of the journaling. In terms of healing, is spending time with people that care about you sincerely and that you love. Spend time in your craft, in your art, in what you value most. Be with nature. This is what it is all about. This is what healing is all about, yeah? Bernadette says, important to define here, my experiences with a covert narcissist must be ignored and they go into another porn as they desperately do not wish to look at themselves. Do you know about this, and are you willing? I can't see the rest of that, Bernadette. I can't see the rest of that question. Sorry, my apologies. It cuts it off, unfortunately, for some reason. On the phone, because I'm on my phone today. I'm not on my computer. I mix it up anyway. So the healing comes from nurturing self and going back to the basics. Go back to the basics. If you're healing from being in a narcissistic relationship, it's very common that people that have been in narcissistic relationships feel drained and broken and just fragmented and lesser parts of themselves. Give me number 10 in the comment box if you can resonate with that. If you have been that person or you know others that have been that person. They feel so disconnected. They feel so hurt. They feel so broken and so shattered and just so weak and so just the life has been sucked out of them and it takes so long to recover. We've got to go back to basics, beautiful people. Be with nature. Ground yourself. Engage in experiences that fill your heart, that sing to your soul, no matter what they are. Be them, do that. Just engage fully in connecting to yourself, in being and doing and going and flowing, in being in balance. Seek help from those that you trust, respect and revere. Continue to have faith in the human condition. Practice mindfulness. Immerse into self. Expose yourself to situations that evoke compassion and ego identification in a more inclusive manner. Be able to cognitively reframe those situations, perspective switching. So in neuroscience, it's known as a cognitive reframe. Cognitively reframe that situation to work in your favor. How has it benefited you? What growth have you been able to extract from that? What value have you been able to extract from that situation? Yes, Lana, is easier said than done, absolutely. But if we do not speak to it, if we do not start somewhere, we will never do. We will never be able to immerse ourselves and embody these principles. Gratitude. You beat me to it, Zoe. Gratitude is so important. Gratitude is so beautiful. Gratitude liberates us. It de-stresses us. It grants us perspective. And then, of course, you could always revert to traditional psychotherapy or even forms of medication. I would avoid forms of medication, but of course, only you can make that decision. Family is about loyalty, support and unconditional love. It's not about blood. Being related through blood doesn't necessarily make you family. It only makes you a relative. Yeah. Zoe says forgiveness. The universe has shaken you to awaken you. Let gratitude be your attitude. Yes, Nicole. Number 10 in the comment. No, number 11 in the comment box for that. Number 11 in the comment box for that. That's awesome. That's beautiful. Forgiveness. Forgiveness of self. Forgiveness of others. Liberates us deeply. And coming from here. Coming from heart. You know, my journey for me has been one of heart. The most profound journey in my life has been learning to come and live from my heart, to operate from my heart, to feel and live deeply from my heart. I've always been a deeply feeling person, a deeply emotive person, and an empathetic person, but live too much up here. And sometimes I still do, you know, but when we come from here and we learn to forgive ourselves and love ourselves and be with ourselves and connect to ourselves in a selfish, selfless manner, we begin to realize that there are a lot of hurt people out there. And in their pain, you know, hurt people hurt people. In their pain, most people just don't know any better. Most people just don't understand and cannot feel. They don't have that capacity to feel the way you do. So when you are teary, when you are hurting, when you are connected, be grateful that you are able to feel. It's a very powerful place to be. And Raylene says, I resonate with that step, but I wonder how to prevent the ongoing exploitation of that same empathy and compassion. Self-awareness is the short answer to that. The more self-aware you are, the more you know yourself. Know yourself. Know yourself. Not here as well, but know yourself. Know yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you will choose individuals that you trust, respect, and revere to bring into your life. Yeah? And then you can be vulnerable and open with them. That's a beautiful place to be. Come from your heart. It has been the greatest gift to me. And when you can come from your heart, you can then come from Ajna. You can be more discerning, yeah? In the choices that you make. Come from heart. So I want to share with you a couple of things, amazing things that are happening in my world, which would hopefully impact your world to some degree. I'm in Melbourne, Australia next week, from the 31st to the 7th of 31st of August to 7th of September, where I'll be speaking at a Sacred Sexuality Summit. So sacredsexuality.org. Sacred Summit.org. And so if you're in Melbourne peeps, get to that summit on the 3rd of September. I'll be presenting there, and I'll be a panelist and a speaker at the Sacred Sexuality Summit and Conscious Relationships. Beautiful place to be. There are amazing speakers that are going to be there. And then I'm also running a workshop with a beautiful Charmaine Adam in Melbourne and Victoria as well, again on conscious relationships and consciously relating, and that will be on the 6th of September. And if thank you, Sangazer, thank you so much. And if you resonate with that, please jump on that. So it's in Melbourne, Victoria, yeah, in Australia. If you're in Melbourne and you're watching this live feed, or you know people that are in Melbourne and they wish to come to the workshop or the Sacred Sexuality Summit, please let them know. It'll be next week. It'll be next week or the week after. Yeah, that'll be wonderful. It'll be great to see that this workshop's going to be epic. This workshop is going to be all about relating to self, relating to our intimate partners, our loved ones, cultivating healthy relationships in a balanced, harmonious way. Yeah, it's in Melbourne, Raylene. What I'll do is I'll put some links in the I'll put some links in the title, yeah, for the summit, and the workshop will be at Second Story Studios, I believe it is. Second Story Studios, yeah. So that'll be cool, yeah. It'll be lovely to see you there. And from the 8th to the 11th of September, for Perth peeps or anyone, you can be anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter. You can fly down into Perth. I'll be running a retreat with my good friend Mark and good friends Mark and Sam Reid, all about health and relationships, your relationship to self, your relationship to your own health. And we're going to deep dive into self and really provide a foundation, a very healing 4 days of what that looks like. Yeah, please, Raylene, that would be wonderful. I'll send you, Raylene, send me a message and I'll send you some details. Yeah, or just be a lookout on my Facebook page. I'm going to put some information up now. Yeah, that'll be great. So yeah, that retreat, and I'll put a link again in the comment box. So if you're interested in the retreat from the 8th to the 11th of September, it's going to be 4 epic days of health and connection to self and self-love and self-worth and learning how to be connected. Matt, get there if you can, brother. If you can, it will be so amazing to have you there. Brother, get there to the retreat if you can. Take a few days off, spend a few days extra on the back end. Do something, make it happen. I know you can. Make it happen. Beautiful people, thank you so much for being here. I deeply appreciate your time and your energy and your interaction, your wisdom and your thoughts. And to all those new wonderful people that have come on tonight, thank you so much. Carol, you can private message me if you need to, my dear. Melody, I'm sure it will one day, not too far away. At least in the US, that's a given. The framework that we're developing for this retreat is really cool in terms of how we connect to ourselves and how we can provide tools that de-stress us in that 4-day retreat, but then take those tools and those practices of self back home as well. Yeah, it's the same with the workshop that I'm running in Melbourne with Charmaine. So it's going to be really, really cool. Amazing things happening, amazing people in my life and amazing people in your life. You just need to be open to it. Yeah, and thank you so much for building this tribe and this beautiful collective community. It's just amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm always glad to be of service, and it is my honor to be of service. And I will continue to do that as long as I'm breathing and this heart is ticking and this mind is functioning and the body is moving. Yeah. So many blessings on your journey. If you're interested in any of those the retreat in particular, the workshop, please let me know. Just contact me directly. And many, many blessings on your journey. So much love to you all. I'll see you again on Tuesday evening. Or maybe even tomorrow night. I might do a impromptu live feed tomorrow night as well, yeah? But I'll see you very, very soon. Thank you.